So there was also something I'm going to quickly address before I start polishing, because you do the kind of the bulk of the work first, the heavy stuff. These frets are a little bit catchy. They're a little bit sharp. And so we're going to just round them off a little bit. Now when it comes to, these are like these really small thin frets, you really want to be slow and do as little as you need to do, because you don't have a lot of material to work with. So essentially you try to keep it simple, right? So not using anything to cover it, because these have the flat surfaces, so they don't damage the fretboard while you're busy with the frets. And the way I do it is I only touch them if they need to. So you kind of feel it. Okay, there's one, and then you kind of go around it like that. But usually it catches right where it touches the wood, in that speck. So I tilt it towards the angle, and then the other side as well, and give it a feel. See the angle, and then the angle back again. Now because it's catchy, they're usually just tiny little sharp points, so there's no need to go digging in, thinking that you're going to be like taking off all this material. You really don't. You're just taking off that little sharp edge. So I've done most of these. And when I've got, so these have got like a groove in them. They're like this, and then flat and flat, and the groove has the abrasive little teeth. So when you're trying to get, so when the fret ends on the piece of wood like this, you're just trying to get into that catch. So you angle it in and over, and you just do it really carefully. But we've kind of, I've done most of them already. It's not bad, it's not like it's this massive issue here. That's why you won't see me like, this is not a massive fret job. This is really just kind of things you would have expected the manufacturer to do, and they do on the higher end models. So usually there's not a lot of difference. There's usually not a lot of difference in the tiers of guitars when you come up to about 600-700 pounds, all the way from 150. It's usually this sort of aftercare, finalization, making things a little bit tidier. Alright, but when it comes to the polishing, we've got to do it a little bit differently. We are going to use these guys. Okay. And I like using these. These are just really thin nail files. They're not very strong, so what that means is they're not going to eat a lot of material fast, and they're cheap and easy to deal with. And in this case, it's more a case of cleaning than anything else. If that makes any sense. Another piece right under my feet. Now when you do this pre kind of polishing, you don't go on the top like that, you go around and over. You use your fingers to feel it. Because you don't want to flatten the top, you don't want to have to re-crown it. This is really just cleaning the frets and polishing them. So we're also using fine grits, like 500s upwards. So that's just the first layer off, kind of main grime and dirt. Now we need to go up the way. Okay. Where's the other one? The reason you polish threads and why you would want to do this regularly is because the smoother the top surface is, the less likely the strings will catch into the metal and wear it down. So if they're polished regularly, they last longer and you don't get so much fret wear, ironically. So I'll be carrying on with that and be back. So I've pretty much done what I wanted to do. I wanted to show you a few tricks. When it comes to the final bits of polishing, even when you've got more material to work with and you're polishing threads and you need to get a little bit down and dirty and get more material off, my trick is to use a rubber and put the paper, the sandpaper, over the rubber, because what happens is the rubber is obviously rubbery and you can push down and it will more or less take on the form of the fret. I've also got one where I cut a slight V into the rubber so that it even more goes around the fret when you're actually polishing, which works amazingly. But we're now on the final bit. We've already used the 2000 grit. So we're now trying to polish the last ends with. And so there's two ways of doing this. This gets a little bit funny, but we use a polishing compound. This is one of the nicest, the Peak. It works for all materials, and again, you just need a little bit. And take something plastic like a Scotch Brite or something like that. And now you can do the final polishing to get the shine up. You don't have to use this, you can also use a cloth. These ones at the end are always a bother because they're so close to one another. And you really have to polish for a wee while to get a decent shine. But you want to shine because that means you've got a really polished surface, and again, it goes back to the idea that the more polished your frets are, the less it'll snag with the strings, which means the less they will wear, the less abrasion happens, because the strings just slip off. Trying to get that shine. So actually, what's nice about this, one of the reasons I'm filming this, is because with a little bit of knowledge and a little bit of effort, you can get yourself, with all ease and comfort, the cheaper guitars, especially kind of basic ones like Stratocasters and Squiers and stuff like that. Because with a little bit of effort and a bit of knowledge, they can become really good, very playable and reliable guitars. Okay, so there's no need to go and buy something stupidly expensive. I've done most of these already, this is just for show. There's another polishing compound which people tend to ignore, and I've seen posts where they complain about it. Don't use it, blah 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 blah. And that is furniture polish. They say it leaves oil residues and all that because it's got like waxy. Actually, the main purpose of furniture polish is that it's anti-static, and so you can comfortably use it as long as you polish it off and don't get it into nooks and crannies. And this guitar, for example, it's got a varnished neck, so you don't have any sort of weird fears that it might seep into the wood or something like that. So you can use it on this, no problem. If it was a rosewood neck, something like that, I wouldn't suggest it. But in this case, there's no problem. It's a really good cleaner, anti-static, and it actually does a really decent job of cleaning and getting crap out of the nooks and crannies. So we want the neck to be absolutely tidy and clean. This also gives me the opportunity to take my nail and clean the sides of the frets, because they've also been a bit dirty. There's some finger marks here where obviously he's playing. You can see he's been playing the A, the D, the G quite often, and the B, and so it's worked through the varnish. So because of that, what we're gonna do, so actually I'm gonna jump ahead a bit, because I'm here right now. These nut slots are very, very thin, but they seem to be okay. So literally all I'm doing is giving it a little bit more with very fine sandpaper. I don't like using the wee files because the good ones are really expensive, the cheap ones don't work, but more importantly, this is one of those situations where there's a saying like, cut twice and it's still too short. You really don't want to overdo it, because if you overdo it, you are buying a new nut. And I'm not actually trying to increase the depth, I'm trying to increase the width. So that they don't clamp onto the strings. Okay. Right, so that's that. Let's put a little bit of lemon oil on it. There are some points where you don't have that much varnish, it's very thin varnish. I actually wanted to take this boy off. The tree here, and the reason I wanted to take it off is because I wanted to see if it's how good it is. If it might be also a spot where the strings are catching. We don't want that either. So again, with this oil you don't need a lot, but I'm gonna spread it around. When you see me doing this, every time I get to a fret, I'm pushing the cloth into the fret, into the side of the fret. And there you see some fret sprouties now that we're working on it and everything is clean, but I don't think that's a problem. Not yet, anyway. Okay. I think people put this lemon oil styrofoam. I just use the normal Dunlop 65 lemon oil fretboard oil. I think they use it because it smells nice. No other reason. So anyway, let's check this guy out. There's a couple of things I'm going to do now to this. It's just give it a wee slight bit of sanding. You can't really see or know if this is going to be a place where it's going to catch. But what you can do is already graphite it. So I'm only concentrating on the edges in case they're sharp and the string bends and might catch somewhere. I'm not worrying about the rest because that's not necessary. Okay, and now I'm going to take some graphite, and guess where we get the graphite from? Clutch pencil. And we're really just putting some in there so that the strings have some lubrication, just in case. Okay. Sweet. Done. Alright, let's stop this video here.